All it took was one Ukrainian strike jet to make Moscow blink. One radar blip, one flight that wasn't supposed to matter. And then, the air defenses around the Russian capital woke up like a hornet's nest. Sirens, tracer fire, interceptors streaking into the night. And the strangest part? The story spreading online wasn't about 100 drones. It was about one aircraft, used like a match to light an entire city's defense network. How does a single jet trigger one of the most layered air defense systems on Earth? Why would Ukraine even try it? And what did they really get out of it? Because if the accounts are even half accurate, the ending wasn't an explosion. It was a message. Join us as we break down how one strike jet may have baited Moscow's defenses into revealing themselves, and why that moment changed the game. Moscow has spent years building the image of an untouchable fortress, not just politically, physically, a city wrapped in radar, missiles, and overlapping rings of protection. The capital and its surrounding region hold more than 20 million people. So when the war began creeping closer, the Kremlin didn't just tighten security, it stacked it. Long-range systems to look outward, point defense systems to swat down low, fast targets, and layers in between, tied together by sensors and command links that are supposed to make the whole thing move like a single organism. Then Russia did something that looked like a scene from a movie. They put air defenses on rooftops, not in distant fields, not hidden in forests, on top of government buildings in downtown Moscow. A visible signal to the world, we're expecting something. But when you build a shield that big, you create a new problem. Your shield has to decide what's real and what's bait. Here's the part most people miss. Air defense isn't just about shooting, it's about sensing, tracking, classifying, and making decisions under pressure. In a perfect world, every radar return is clean, every target is identified, every engagement is controlled. But war doesn't happen in a perfect world. It happens at night, in bad weather, with incomplete data, and with a nervous capital that has already seen drones reach deep into Russia. In September 2024, Russia said Ukraine launched a huge wave of drones, with many downed. Around Moscow and flights around the city disrupted for hours. By 2025, warnings and temporary airport restrictions became a repeating pattern. Radar blips, emergency crews, debris, and brief airspace shutdowns around major airports. That does something to a city. It makes everyone jumpy, and it makes air defense crews faster on the trigger. Because the one thing they can't afford is hesitation. So, what does Ukraine do with that? According to the viral theory that spread across conflict-watching channels, Ukraine didn't need 100 drones on this night. They didn't need a missile barrage. They needed one aircraft to play a different role. Not a bomber, not a dogfighter, a decoy launcher, a switch flipper, a sensor trap. Because if you can force Moscow's air defense network to light up, you can learn how it's built. Which radars activate first, which systems engage at what ranges, which airports go into lockdown, which corridors are covered, which corridors are thin. In modern air war, that is gold. Sometimes the objective isn't to destroy the shield, it's to map it. And that's where the one-jet detail starts to make sense. In 2024 and 2025, open-source observers began noticing something new hanging under. Ukrainian fighter wings, American-made ADM-160 MALD decoys. These aren't traditional missiles meant to smash targets. They're meant to confuse them. A MALD is a small cruise missile-shaped decoy built to stimulate, confuse, and distract enemy air defenses, not strike buildings directly. And the key advantage? It gives one aircraft the ability to create the illusion of many. Light enough to ride under jets that were never designed for modern Western weapons. Flexible enough to be loaded with mission data before launch. And powerful enough, if used correctly, to make radar operators see threats where there's nothing but air. One aircraft. Multiple ghosts. A citywide reaction. This isn't a brand new idea. Decoys have been used for decades to make defenders fire early, fire often, and fire at the wrong thing. The difference now is scale. A decoy doesn't have to look like a bomber in the sky. It just has to look like one on radar. And that means one pilot can do something that used to require an entire formation, not by dropping more explosives, by forcing more decisions. And that's what air defenses hate most. Decisions under time pressure. If you've never seen a modern air defense network light up, imagine this. It's not one radar turning on. It's a chain. A distant sensor sees something weird. That cue triggers other radars to narrow their scan. Command posts start routing tracks. Point defense units swing their turrets. Gunners search for a shape they can't quite see. And once one crew believes it has a target, Everyone nearby becomes more willing to fire, because nobody wants to be the unit that hesitated while a threat got through. That is how panic becomes an algorithm. That is how one blip becomes a citywide event. So picture the night the story describes, not as a dogfight, as a trap. Somewhere in Ukraine, a single fighter takes off, not to sprint to Moscow, not to duel Russian jets, to launch the right ghosts in the right direction, then turn back. Because the strike isn't what the jet drops. The strike is what the defender does next. First, unexpected returns appear on screens, fast, low, not enough to scream airliner, but enough to force a decision. Then the Moscow region starts hearing the sounds people recognize instantly now. Distant booms, rapid gunfire, that sharp tearing sound of tracer rounds cutting into the sky. Videos leak. Telegram fills up with shaky clips and captions. Air defense is working. And then the debate begins. Some accounts say it's a new kind of helicopter-style drone. Others insist it's something else entirely. That the gunners were so spooked, they engaged a Russian helicopter by mistake. And we know that kind of mistake is not science fiction. There have been widely shared reports of confused engagements around the Moscow region, with conflicting claims about what was actually in the sky. And Russia has faced real friendly fire incidents during the war, including cases where air defense crews misidentified their own aircraft. Which is exactly why these clips hit so hard. Because the story doesn't require Moscow to be weak. It only requires Moscow to be nervous. But here's the real question. Why would Ukraine want Moscow to fire? Because if this was a trap, the trap doesn't end with tracers in the sky. It ends with what firing reveals. When a giant air defense network wakes up, it creates consequences. First, it burns readiness. Crews exhaust themselves. They reload. They reposition. They argue over what they saw. They make mistakes. Second, it creates chaos for civil aviation. Flights get held. Airspace gets restricted. Airports pause operations. The capital's rhythm gets interrupted. And third, the part military planners love, it reveals the choreography. Who talks to whom? Which radar hands off to which battery? How quickly interceptors launch? Where the gaps are? It's like forcing a chess player to show their opening moves before you commit your own pieces. Now think about the psychological side. Moscow has spent the entire war trying to keep the capital feeling normal, even while the front burns, even while strikes hit other regions, because morale in the center matters. So when air defenses start firing over the Moscow region, it doesn't just scare people, it breaks the illusion. It reminds everyone, including the people in power, that distance is not safety anymore. And if the theory is correct, Ukraine didn't need to destroy a landmark to do that. They just needed to make Moscow's shield flinch. And here's the twist that shocked everyone in the most compelling versions of this story. The jet wasn't the strike. The jet was the key. The strike was the reaction. Because once Moscow's defenses are fixated on a phantom path, everything else becomes easier. Other drones can move, other operations can unfold, or intelligence teams can simply listen, record, and build a map for the next big wave. There have been nights where Russia said drones were headed for Moscow while other regions reported fires, industrial damage, or debris impacts, a reminder that attention can be pulled in one direction while targets are pressured in another. The ending isn't a crater, it's a blueprint built out of Moscow's own emissions, calls, and launch decisions, a blueprint the defender created for the attacker. So let's be clear about what this kind of tactic represents. It's not about winning a dogfight, it's about creating a choice the defender hates. If Russia holds fire and a real threat gets through, the humiliation is historic. If Russia fires and it was bait, the attacker learns and the defender wastes resources and exposes positions. Either way, the defender loses something. That's why decoys exist. That's why electronic warfare matters. And that's why the idea of one jet triggering Moscow grabbed so many people. Because it feels like the smaller force finding a lever. Now, what about the part nobody wants to talk about? The risk. When defenses are nervous, mistakes happen. And when mistakes happen around a major city with dense air traffic, the consequences can be terrifying. In 2025, online reports spread claiming air defenses nearly engaged a civilian Aeroflot flight, approaching Sheremetyevo, a claim that went viral precisely because it fit the mood of a jumpy capital and an overstressed defense network. Whether that specific incident was true, false, or distorted, the danger behind it is real. When your shield is keyed up night after night, you don't just risk missing threats, you risk hitting the wrong ones. So did Ukraine really use just one strike jet to trigger Moscow's air defenses? Here's the part that changes how you should view the whole story. Ukraine has been seen integrating decoy systems on its fighters in ways that match the logic behind this claim. Moscow has repeatedly had to restrict airport operations when drones are reported inbound, and there really have been nights when Moscow region air defenses fired at mysterious targets, with competing claims about what was actually in the sky. But the specific, cinematic detail: one Ukrainian strike jet single-handedly setting off Moscow's entire defensive network has never been officially confirmed in a clean, undeniable way. Most of the proof lives where modern war stories always live: in short clips, in Telegram posts, in half-translated captions, in anonymous accounts. That doesn't mean the tactic is fake. It means the pressure is real. Because even the possibility that Moscow can be baited into lighting up its defenses is the kind of fear that never really goes away. Thanks for watching. While you're still here, click on the link on your screen to check out another of our videos. See you there.